we're going to be talking about the Netflix documentary Heroin, and this is directed by Elaine Sheldon. And this documentary basically goes over Huntington's, West Virginia opioid and heroin problem. It follows three women with different missions to improve their community. And these are Jan Rader, Naisha Freeman, and the judge Patricia Keller.
So Rader, the chef deputy, is a first responder. The documentary follows her trying to revive people who have overdosed and are nearly on the verge of life or death. Naisha Freeman runs the Brown Bag Ministry, where she goes around giving away bags full of food and Bible passages to prostitutes and addicts. Then Judge Patricia Keller runs a drug court, where she helps people move in the right track and provides a type of AA support system for these addicts.
So these ladies make the documentary very fascinating and kind of gut-wrenching. You get to see the toxicity that it takes upon the town, and it's really run-down area, people getting hooked on heroin, opioid, and prescription drugs. But most of the people who get hooked on these drugs are the ones who have been prescribed opioids for injury. When these people didn't have the access to them anymore, it acted as a gateway to illegal drugs like heroin.
Seeing the will of these three ladies is pretty powerful. The documentary does a good job at capturing the dedication that goes into helping people every day. This became a norm to not only these heroes, but everyone in the community. This documentary is trying to change this ongoing norm of seeing daily overdoses in the community, and by being able to see the individuals that were affected by the drug epidemic and watch them talk about their recovery allows the viewers like us to form connections with each of these victims of addiction.
And there is one part in the film where Rader, which is the first responder, she's trying to save a guy who has already overdosed about twice that week, and the way she responds is very calm and powerful. It's like second nature to her. She says something in the film like, if I save their lives 50 times, that gives them 50 more tries to try and make their life remarkable. So she doesn't dehumanize these people, even though they have made bad choices in their lives. It's important to know that it's not over for people that are in this dark place like these addicts. And it's a great example for them to see that they too can fix their lives by seeing how far these addicts have come.
The film also does a great job at showing how these ladies are so accepting of these addicts. Like in Drug Court with Freeman, she shows that it's okay to have mishaps, but they aren't completely blind to what's going on. They approach the situations in a totally different way than you would think. They of course have consequences for when these people slip up, but it's very known that they're doing this to help them have a better quality life, and it's not just to punish them.
And all of this crazy and traumatic action is shown throughout a span of 40 minutes. The film is trying to show a huge problem within a very short amount of time, but it feels like they end the documentary in kind of an awkward place. When the film ends, it feels like they end in the middle of a sentence, like if I were to be talking and I stopped talking in the middle of my sentence. But the story didn't have enough time to develop fully with how short it was, and they made the film extremely intriguing, but it doesn't end as strong as it necessarily started.
Even though it was short, the film does provide the watchers with a good amount of suspense and information about the overall problem within Huntington. If the documentary had been longer, however, it maybe could have dragged on. The short documentary gave all the necessary information in order to keep the watcher entertained and informed about the epidemic. But the way that they ended the film could have had a cliffhanger, or maybe just allowed more people to want to know what's going on within this worldwide problem.
Yeah, so the documentary kind of dragged a lot, but for being 39 minutes, the documentary felt a lot longer than it actually was.
Though it was like a bit boring, the documentary does show scenes of people who are experiencing revival from being in an overdose state. And watching those scenes were pretty intense because it's not a rehearsed movie scene, like it's reality. But in terms of overall intensity, I think the documentary does kind of fall short. As you can see, this is a real life scenario that is happening. Watching how to handle the situation is interesting to watch, but aside from the scenes they show, the documentary still finds a way of being very dry.
That's true, but in its defense, a documentary on heroin shouldn't necessarily be entertaining. You don't want people to associate entertainment with heroin. The documentary is informative, which a documentary should be. Though the documentary wasn't the most entertaining piece of film, it did do a great job of highlighting hope in terms of recovery programs for heroin users.
I do agree that you shouldn't associate heroin with entertainment, but I still think that the documentary could have done a better job of keeping our attention. But this being said, the documentary did, though, do a good job with engaging with an audience that may or may not have had a heroin problem by showing people not only going through but also completing the program set for these users. It provides a beacon of hope for all of the audience.
Particularly, the documentary shows a character named Mickey, and by showing Mickey, it was a great way to display hope. For one to go from being a heroin addict to being clean is expired. I guess. Particularly, the documentary shows a character named Mickey, and by showing Mickey, it was a great way to display hope. From going from being a heroin addict to being clean is super inspiring, and it gives perspective in the sense that if Mickey can go clean, then why can't I do this for myself? So even though the documentary doesn't leave you in a state of awe, it does leave you in a state of feeling motivated.
I did feel a sense of motivation. I think showing people accomplish these achievements is great fuel, but I also think the documentary could have maybe even stepped it up a bit in terms of hope. They could have shown different programs that could help provide who use heroin, or maybe even listed a hotline or a website that they can visit to see other programs. But I think that's just me being picky, because the documentary does do a great job of leaving you with hope. Particularly, the documentary showcases women in position of power very well, and as a male, I think it's important to show women like that, the documentary does, because you don't really see it enough.
Yeah, so the documentary does push feminism very well. It is very empowering to see these women being shown as heroes. In movies, we don't see much of women being shown as heroes, so the fact that this is reality makes it much more meaningful. These women are real life, modern day Wonder Woman, and with this being said, I think that makes the documentary worth a watch.
Yeah, overall, I would recommend this documentary for people to watch. I do consider it a must-watch. Though it is a little slow, it's still very informative and provides us with a great sense of hope, especially with this push towards feminism.
Yeah, even though the documentary is boring in some sense, it does do a great job of highlighting hope and feminism, and we can always use a little hope in our lives. So, with this being said, the next time you're scrolling through Netflix, I recommend you watch On Heroin.